the Hajas and Hallro.
High, low, and no show. Cheers to that. Chin chins from styrofoam cups, broadcasting live from undisclosed location in Little Italy, SD, Cali. We're gonna do our own little bracketology of mankind madness, our little jihad against misinformation and fads and trends. We're gonna break it down, single elimination format. Eddie, hieroglyphics, our opinions matter, and we're gonna tell you what the most important humankind achievements are of all time.
So grab that pencil and paper, take notes. Class is in session.
And there will be a quiz, pop quiz. So, basically this all started, Eddie and I like to shoot the shit. If you've seen the previous episodes, you know what this is about. But ground rules are, we've come a long way, baby. Humankind. We're broadcasting on this camera using plastics, glass. We've got wood. We're in a superstructure using concrete and metal. Airplanes fly by.
Satellites shooting signals down to our little iPhones.
How many things do you take for granted every day? And where did all those things come from?
And what was most important?
Yeah, which came first, the chicken or the egg? It really doesn't matter, because if the egg's more important than the chicken, then that's what we're really talking about. Macro to micro. And today, finally, we're going to get down to some brass tacks. In efforts of filling out a 64-team bracket of the top categories, which we have labeled Inventions, Discoveries, Paradigm Shifts, and Wild Card, you don't know. So maybe 16 of each of those or so in a big bracket are going to go toe-to-toe, one-on-one, mono-on-mono, until we boil it down to just one. And I think today we're just going to have to get it off our chest. What are the top ones? We're just absolutely, the cream of the crop, the top seeds, and without putting them in the bracket yet, the same as a top poll, AP or Associated Press or whatever. These are our current, into the season, 25 to stay alive.
The 2017-18 season's officially over. These are our end of what it would be the regular season rankings, 1 through 25, all
this
conferences.
This ain't no preseason poll.
Including the conference championships haven't been played quite yet, but we're going to throw out our top 25s for this current season.
So sit back, relax, and let yourself go. Continue to yell at the computer screen or curse us for missing something, but really we've done our research, we've cross-referenced things. Eddie and I probably don't agree on everything, and that's not important. We have a bipartite system here, the same as the United States government right now, but I'm not saying he's red or I'm blue or up, down, whatever, but hopefully we can come to some Congress, some agreement.
Yeah, it's not going to really matter. I mean, once we put the 64 teams in the bracket, it's going to be obvious. And there might be 20. There might be 20 that have the capable capacity to get to the final four.
If you were a betting man, which one would you put your money on? And maybe we'll allow that. I don't know. But we'll see what happens in the coming couple days, weeks, months. But they always say, don't go reinventing the wheel. And the wheels on the bus go round and round. And my wheels are turning, and the wheel in the sky keeps on turning. And I think, needless to say, the wheel would be an number 1 seed. And it's probably only surpassed by one thing. So coming in as a runner-up on our postseason final tally, number 2, the wheel. I don't think Eddie and I have any disagreements about that.
No, we didn't. We hit it. Both of them.
Right.
Both
we hit that wheel on the head.
Number 1 and 2.
Number 1. Right.
Number 1 got 2 first place votes out of 2 people.
Right, unanimous.
Putting their votes in. And you could probably guess what that has to be. And it has to be fire.
Fire!
And but the more that I look at this, the more that I wonder where fire is going to end up.
Is it unbeatable? Is it a behemoth? Is it a mammoth type number one seed where it's going wire to wire? First place at the beginning of the season, first place at the end, first place in the tournament, number one blowouts. Crown it. Should we just crown it and just quit? We're done.
It has the fire. It has the fire power. But the more I think about this time and this moment, 50 years ago, fire definitely wins the tournament. But like with all this new technology and like how we've changed as an organism, species, and where we put our time in, like is this some sort of technology or this intra-web that you're enjoying this podcast right now? Is it more important to who we are as a species now than fire was to get it here? That's why me and Hall have to get together and do this podcast for you, because there's not a lot of people that can run the calculations with all the variables and decipher the code that's necessary in 2018 in this moment.
Yeah,
we're not in 2019.
Binary code. I mean, binary code versus fire. These days, everybody's fire comes from the screen of their computer and the internet. That's all microchips and binary code. But the fact of the matter is, there will be some upsets. There should be surprises, and basically those surprises and the volatility in the upcoming tournament of Mankind Madness will determine, hey, does fire have a letdown? Did it get dampened out? Did it take for granted its opponent and get wiped out? But we were in the middle of some of our previous episodes, and the entire state of California was on fire, and it shows you basically, as much as man harnesses fire, has the ability to produce fire on demand, etc., it's still nature's, to start with. We're just borrowing it from Zeus, so it's one of those things. But I think, hands down, if anybody off the street, we ask them, and they're not a complete millennial hipster wasteoid, they'd probably figure out that fire and the wheel would be, in the top 5. So let's just get that out of the way. But, there's more intrigue to follow, I guarantee it, because there's a bunch of other things that you guys are not going to see come by. You're like, whoa, where'd that come from? What's this all about?
I think I counted there's 120 entries from those first 5 episodes that we did, and we actually
spitballing spaghetti.
We've missed some that we'll follow up on in the next episode. All of the entries.
Just chill to the next episode.
All the entries that didn't get covered, we will pick up the slack and complete the entries in the next podcast before we actually see them. But today we just thought we'd have a little bit of fun and just do our top 25 rankings.
Well, certainly we're having fun because it's been too long. I mean, it's been a month, and then it was a month before that. So, I mean, what we assumed were going to be semi-weekly installments have turned into monthly installments. But hey, life happens. I'm sure you can agree. But this will be for perpetuity. I mean, this will be for time immemorial. If we get this right, you guys are all going to be putting us up there with Bill, William Ted Esquire, and Theodore Logan. Bill and Ted.
Some of the greatest singers of
But so just to frame it more, we have 4 quadrants that we've been thinking of. Humankind, A would be inventions. Man has been necessity is the mother of invention, so
AKA the will.
The wheel, or, other things like the spear, or, computers, or, what have you. Humans are constantly inventing and reinventing things, but the reinventions don't so much matter. We're talking about the macro invention itself, like the camera that you're filming us on. That would be somewhere on this list. That's inventions. What are some of the other ones?
Discoveries. Things that people haven't invented per se, aka fire, but we learned how to harness it. We discovered how to harness it. Steel, petroleum, things like that. We've absolutely invented things to utilize certain things that we discovered that are natural, earth-bound elements of the sorts. Right. But without a doubt, they've had major impacts on our development.
Right. We haven't invented the human body, but we have made discoveries in medicine. You come home early from work and you discover your wife in bed with another man. I mean, that's not much of a discovery, but you just think about, the discoveries that have happened, space discovery, exploration, etc. Men are explorers. They've mankind and womankind, humankind, have basically gone through plenty of physical and metaphysical discoveries.
Which leads us into the next category, which is paradigm shifts.
Right, once those discoveries take hold.
Talking about metaphysics, religion, different ways to look at life that have written some, unspoken rules of how to conduct ourselves as a species to be most harmonious with each other and the world around us. And of course, there's always assholes to break those rules, but it has still organized a mass number of people to get together and have the same vision or some sort of belief system to live just more on a day-to-day with each other.
Right, and that's like a cultural phenomenon, but in general, some of these inventions or discoveries push forth, and they change the modus operandi of how everyday human beings and mankind as a whole do business. For example, like a calendar or, human rights or, the Industrial Revolution, things of that nature have transformed or catapulted humankind to this kind of rat race society that we live in these days, this 8 to 6 workplace, this, Monday through Friday, follow the sun, everybody knows what time it is on their cell phone or their DigiWatch and how many calories they're doing, and the technological backdrop of this culture that we live in as humankind is all part of paradigm shifts. It doesn't come without the iPhone, which didn't come without the internet, which didn't come without, the computer chip and all these other things. There could be inventions, discoveries, etc., but there's a major trend or cultural shift that happens. And in my mind, number 3 would be the Magna Carta, which is, a document from the mid-centuries in Britain, the 1400s, whereby, the British basically laid out a set of human rights, laws for every man, unalienable rights, things that turned into the United States Constitution. The French had their thing. And that's a paradigm shift, that mankind even had to lay it out like, well, this is unjust, this is justice, this is law, this is, to live under a set of codes. Sure, there was Hammurabi's law, an eye for an eye back in, Persia, or the Fertile Crescent, etc. But this Magna Carta thing really, it put it down in writing. It says, you can expect this, you can have advocates for you as your personal human being. And it probably came hand in hand as a paradigm shift with mankind used to be prey. Then we got to the top of the food chain, and then we just prey on each other. And that paradigm shift enlisted the fact that certain people are better at playing the game than others, and they're going to take advantage of the disenfranchised, and thereby you have to have some rules. Ground rules, maybe they're not fair, but that to me is one of the ultimate paradigm shifts and coming as number 3 in my postseason top 25.
And the final category of the 4 quadrants is, of course, our favorite category. It's most likely your favorite category. It's those things and items that just make everything a little bit more enjoyable.
Interesting.
And that category is the wild card category.
Wild card. Wild thing, I think I love you. Yeah, that's the wild card. It's like, 8s are wild, aces are wild. Who cares what's wild? It's just that's wild. Think about it, man. Yeah. And this could be any number of things. It could be not even rating on anybody's scale, but that's why it's wild. It's thrown in there to present a little bit of chaos and to put a little perspective on all this, because really we have to live this life, and whether it is it's eat, shit, sleep, work, and repeat or not, sometimes the wild cards add a little bit of flavor to your existence, and they've also had a lot to do with certain outliers in mankind as well. The wild cards in humanity have been the vanguards and pioneers that have pushed the dial, pushed the envelope, moved the dial forward, and I don't know. I mean, what would be your wild card?
I think humor is my number one.
Humor, right?
You look at all the
yes.
comedians out there, George Carlin, and you know,
Oscar Wilde. I mean, I'm sure the king had a jester in his court back in the day. You know,
absolutely. And these are the people that are able to make light of intense subjects and just allow us to look at the world from a different perspective, and from a perspective that what we do is really ridiculous. Like, these rules that we make up for ourselves are just absolutely ridiculous. And I think they're kind of like
animals, right? That's the point. Yeah,
they're the Mr. Oz behind the curtain. They're able to encode the message to make it palatable for almost everyone. We all have really hard beliefs and the way we look at this world, our perspective. It's hard to remold them, but these groups of people have done a great job in just allowing us all to let go of our preconceived notions.
Right, or laugh at ourselves or others. At some point, laughter is an involuntary response. It means if something makes you laugh to your gut, you pretty much didn't have a choice in the matter because somebody did such a good job eliciting it. The same way that drama and tears and crying sometimes take you by surprise. It's emotions, right? So kind of to piggyback on his, my number 4 in my postseason poll would be love, hate. And as a wild card, it kind of piggybacks on what you said, and I didn't include humor here, but the fact that humankind has these intense emotions. And that love can drag you to do some really incredible things, and hate can drag you to do some preposterous and inhumane things. And they're the two sides of the same coin. And that really, you can see in animal kingdom love, but I certainly don't think you see hate in the animal kingdom to the degree that humankind has developed it. And it's part of this cultural phenomenon that is, progressing over 2 millennium and on. It's bad blood, it's record keeping and people keeping score. So it's revenge, violence. It's basically some kind of sin, and we can get to that in a minute. But yeah, my top wild card would certainly be, and my 4 seed, not my 4 seed, but my fourth, number 4 in the postseason poll would be love, hate, that dichotomy. That's something really purely human, right? And people have love-hate relationships with people, with things, like I can love beer and then I can hate myself for drinking too much beer, things like that.
Yeah, they're part of the same coin. Can't get rid of both.
I mean, you can love San Diego, but you can hate the parking situation here.
Yes.
Inside joke.
Yeah. Full-size pickup truck in a city, not a good combination.
Yeah.
That would be an example of a coin with one side.
You're right, Well, what about you? 4 pages, man? I mean, what's coming in at 4? Any ideas?
Out of Ford?
4. No, I know you're a Chevy man. Heavy Eddie in the Chevy.
Yeah, heavy Chevy. Chevy all the way.
Chevy Eddie. Yeah,
Eddie Chevy.
Chevy, heavy
Eddie's
Chevy.
Heavy
Chevy Eddie. Yeah, the ages. I'm saying I'm on 1, 2, 3, 4. Love, hate.
Well, I think the way we've approached this is definitely different. Whenever I approached the top 25, I didn't really look at it as far as the conferences the teams were coming out of.
Right.
I just I did it based on the 2017 regular season, what I thought the strongest teams
right. Yeah.
after this season, not even necessarily forever, what those teams were. So I'm just going to go through my top 25.
Do it.
All right.
But just so you guys know, we're using teams metaphorically in the overall tangent of a basketball March Madness type tournament. So Fire is a team, Wheel is a team, etc. Right? Just for you, the viewer at home. So commence your 25.
So the Hajas top 25, it starts out as fire and will, as Hall mentioned at the beginning. My number 3 is agriculture. I feel like if it's not maybe number 3, I don't know if it'll be a number 1 seed in the bracket, but it's definitely maybe it's in that top 5 things that have actually created culture. So what came first, culture, agriculture? I'm going to say agriculture.
Right, moving from hunters and gatherers to agriculture.
First, to live more of a life in one place, and that allowed us to actually even talk about, like, a lot of the paradigm shifts and philosophies and all that stuff, I think don't happen unless agriculture is worked out first.
We gotta eat to make this complete.
And my number 4 was star navigation or astronomy or whatever you want to call it. I think us discovering the stars and the alignment allowed us to travel safely, and we got to know, we were knowing where we were going before.
We talked about this back in the day. There weren't no TV. Yes. You know, your movie would lie back and make a story about all those stars, and then you start seeing those stars at the same time each year or the same time each month, etc. And give you a picture of your place in the universe,
and helped us discover a sense of time as well. Number 5, language. Without language, this podcast doesn't exist. My number 6 was writing at this time. I think writing probably falls down a few seats once we get to that. Number 7, animal domestication, which is it's one of my favorite concepts, that people at one time didn't have domesticated animals. We trapped them and then just threw them in cages. Probably at first to have as another food source, and then latter as dogs and cats and other things that we can love and spread human likeness onto.
And excuse the sirens, just an urban inconvenience, but yeah, I mean, domestication of animals, obviously, livestock probably came before, having pets, but and then somewhere in the middle was something like a horse where you had transportation. But, man's best friend. Think about that.
Number 8, mushroom psychedelics, which could be a number 1 seed. Far out. And that one's going to be pretty hard for a lot of people to palate.
It's mushrooms taste like shit because they come from shit. Think about that.
They grow in shit.
It's a mind melter. It's a huge expansion, man. You gotta just take it and think about it.
Yeah.
We've mentioned this in prior, so continue. But yeah, mushrooms are big.
Number 9, the microchip, which whenever I think of things upsetting of who we are in this day and moment, the microchip is just it is getting really close to being the top of the world. Like, it'll win. Right. If you played this game out 50 times, I bet the microchip wins at least a couple of them.
I have posited this question to some people, and they've all said computer, internet. But I think it's a little bit biased to the contemporaneous, and that's what we're trying to say is time immemorial. Does the computer stand the test of time if you don't have a fucking outlet? If you don't have Tesla to give you electricity? If you don't have plastic? If you don't have glass? If you don't have steel? If you don't have all these other things, then you don't have a computer.
Yeah, I mean, if we have
microchip is a big step in the right direction.
If we have that big asteroid hit again, I don't know if we're set up to just recover and be at microchip level that fast. So that's the hard place of placing it right now. My number 10, sanitation, got us out of living in our own filth and shit. Number 11, religion, it's another one of those ultimate paradigm shifters.
It's also a real powder keg.
And followed up by humor right behind it. My number 13, I know Hall is going to be in disagreement, but I think it's a lot more important than people give it credit for, and that's throwing rocks. I'm just going to call it throwing rocks. I think it was one of the most important things that we've learned to perfect. And I just think as probably one of the first ways that we learned how to protect ourselves, how to get food, and throwing things is such a big and important part of like just sports in general these days. So it's just high on my list, and I'll defend it throughout this tournament.
I'm happy to hear it. I think throwing rocks is great. Without throwing rocks, you don't have throwing spears. Without throwing spears, you don't have bow and arrows. Without bow and arrows, you get my drift. So, okay, that's pretty
wild cards. Wow. Number 14, currency. I love money. I think we all love money, but it's not top.
This guy really doesn't love money, and money doesn't love you, by the way.
Yes. Number 15, the Black Plague. I just gotta put some dark shit on this list, but we've survived the Black Plague as well, and our health is.
What would that be? A wild card? Would that be? I mean, it's not a discovery. It's not an invention. It's kind of a paradigm shift because every once in a while something's going to come and clean the playing field, and maybe it wasn't a man-made invention, but it certainly was a man-made epidemic. Because people live on top of each other.
Yes. Sanitation.
I like that. I think Black Plague is a great one. I think having a little, this isn't all positive. There's
a 25.
There's an equal and opposite reaction to everything, and everything's ups and downs.
25 to 30% of the population wiped out in a matter of years, maybe a decade or two. That's tremendous. Tremendous. Number 16, music. Going back to those wild cards. Thing probably take for granted, a lot of us. There's always a soundtrack.
I love music. I don't go a day without listening to music, and yet I didn't put it on my list. What kind of chunk of mine?
Oh, yeah. 17, Genghis Khan. And maybe Genghis becomes war, but I like Genghis Khan because, like the Black Plague, there are so many people on this planet right now that are direct descendants, and he's killed so many people too.
Yeah.
Like it just his impact, his carbon footprint is beyond global. Like
his carbon footprint is fucked up, buddy. It's like the size of China. I mean, and it making way back and forth between Italy with the Marco Polo and stuff. I like this guy. This is for a reason that we're doing this podcast right now. Eddie introduces shit like that. It just makes my day. That's all I gotta say.
Number 18, the Magna Carta, which I know I heard the word, but I forgot. I didn't know what it really meant until I think podcast number 1, and I was like, yeah, human rights don't even. And all the human rights that are today all come from that. The civil rights movement, women's right. It all started with the Magna Carta rights, which basically probably said these are the rights that all white men have.
Right.
Unfortunately,
it wasn't all right, but it was all rights. Yeah.
But it got things started nonetheless, and got common people to have some sort of dignity in their being ruled over by the overlords.
Right,
the time.
Before then there was serfs and royalty and all other stuff. We come a long way, so sometimes we bemoan that, but I think you're right.
Yeah. Number 19, good old black gold, aka petroleum.
Petroleum, big time.
Runs the world. I mean, I mentioned microchips a little earlier, but just as much as microchips are in everything, petroleum is like the backbone of getting us around, whether it be in America, having personal vehicles. Even if you don't have a vehicle, you're probably Ubering.
Right.
Like who are the jackasses driving on the street today on a bicycle? Like, there are not too many or public transportation, but petroleum hits everyone every single day, and it's been doing its work for probably like the last 100 years.
And because it made the richest man in the world in Rockefeller and other things, people still have such a big vested interest in petroleum that it's actually going to be hard to go away from, and I think that's a big reason why it belongs on this list. It's not just why it was beneficial, but why it's a dependence, and there's a dependency on petroleum now that probably behooves You know, you talked about carbon footprint. That's what we're talking about. We're all carbon fucking based life forms. We're burning, like prehistoric carbon based life forms to move our carbon based life forms, and that's.
We have a lot of burn still, so it shall continue to be on the list. Number 20, penicillin. Another one of those. Is it a discovery or is it a paradigm shift? I don't know. It was definitely the diseases that it helped cure were by far by man's wanting to live on top of each other for whatever it's worth, but we're all a little healthier and don't need to worry about that accidental death quite as much as we used to. But on the opposite spectrum of accidental deaths, at number 21, gunpowder. There are some accidents with gunpowder, but most of the time, pretty intentional deaths occur from
gunpowder. Gunpowder was something to deal with the Chinese, and it was more of like a, fireworks, before they learned that this is going to propel a bullet at you and become gunpowder. Gunpowder was just, like a, kind of like an alchemy, like a chemistry. It was like, Gandalf and fucking Lord of the Rings just making fucking fireworks and stuff. So yeah, I like that. Gunpowder's certainly on my list.
22, electricity. Another one of those things like petroleum. I love how people are like, oh yeah, I'm all sustainable and blah, blah, blah. But like, who the hell doesn't turn the lights on after 6 o'clock? Like, the dirtiest hippie is good, still gonna
have a fucking loud generator.
And I'm not even saying I'm no better than a dirty hippie because look, you got camo pants on, a tank top, and
fashion. Where's that one? Tell you the truth, though, you bust out the fucking generators when you go camping to play some EDM.
Yeah,
doesn't make you that cool like all the time. So who knows?
Just don't talk shit on it. Number 23, the Gutenberg Press, original internet.
Gutenberg who?
Number 24, the atom bomb. We'll talk about a moment, one singular moment in history.
Batman, little boy.
Destruction of 2 cities, millions of people, millions of structures, and a devastation that lasted years and years and years.
It's kind of one of those things, like splitting the atom came much earlier than that, and they're still splitting atoms, making dark matter, and the CERN in Switzerland and all of their stuff, trying to reverse that whole thing, and physics and quantum physics. But the atom bomb will be the singular poster child for all of that, which is why it belongs somewhere there. And I agree with you there. I wouldn't even say that's a fucking invention. I was like, that's a wow.
And to round out my top 25, steel forging, which I don't know. I like swords. Swords and knives.
And stuff like that. Good, I think you're great. But
good.
Do you need to do disclaimer, personal disclaimer from Steel City, USA?
I don't know. They're kind of in the backseat right now for not showing up in that game a couple weeks ago. But
Pittsburgh, Steel's has always been a big deal out there. So
I never think of, even though I'm from Pittsburgh, I never think about steel. Like, I don't equate the two. Like, when I think about steel forging,
the graphic on their helmet is the coat,
like molecular structure of steel. But what I always think of is like a blacksmith with the anvil and the hammer, like making a sword. That's what I.
He's like the hammer and the anvil. He's just like he's like just got done doing his Russian work. I was like, Eddie, that's good. That's good stuff.
So it's the Hajas top 25.
Are you sure you're done? Are you done?
Yeah,
okay.
I went through them all.
Well, I'll just have you know that I am so impressed. And from the get-go, we've been on the same page on a bunch of stuff, and we spitballed all this shit a long time ago, and there are certain, it just shows you that there are certain commonalities, certain common threads that we're both going to be on the same page for. My list does not necessarily match his list. My list is not far out either. But just so you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 out of 25, we agree. So we can agree that those 13 are going to be in there hands down no matter what, and they'll probably have already given themselves a ticket to the, Sweet 16.
I'd have to say that the 25 that we're talking about today are all in the tournament.
Right, they're all in the tournament, but I'm saying, like, you can expect to see those ones going far if they're that top of mind. So, I'll let you know what's on my mind now, just to conclude, and just to kind of give you guys kind of a counterpoint, because I'm the contrarian. Certainly, and I got 25 here, okay? Numero uno, fuego. Easy. Number 2, the wheels on the bus go round and round. We already discussed that. You don't go reinventing the wheel, right? You don't tug on Superman's cape, you don't spit in the wind. You don't go reinventing the wheel. Number 3, the Magna Carta, which you mentioned, and I think human rights in this day and age as a paradigm shift are about the biggest paradigm shift there ever was, that you have to turn around and recognize that you are an animal that is run through a fucking rat race to be a taxpayer for the military-industrial system and the 1% and the Illuminati and all that shit, and you still got rights and you still take them for granted because there's plenty of other people who get their rights smashed every day. It gives me a guilty complex, and I still go out and abuse those rights. Like I was talking to my parking meter maid today, when she's giving me a ticket, she's like, I don't know why everybody bitches at me when you guys are the one broke the law. And I guess it was my right to park my car there, and it's her right to give me a ticket for that. But I digress. Anyhow, Magna Carta, human rights, the biggest paradigm shift that I can think of. It doesn't necessarily supersede some of the prior, paradigm shifts that came with humans and philosophical and metaphysical and stuff that started, compiling to what that was, but that is the sandwich that everybody has to take a bite out of. Number 4, like I'd already mentioned, love-hate as a wild card. Human emotions is something no one can get past. The fact that somebody will throw themselves in front of a moving car to save somebody they love, or somebody will throw somebody that they don't love in front of a moving car because they fucking hate them. I don't think you see that in other species. And you can see love, but you can't see hate, and that's what's so deplorable. So,
yeah, most of the stuff in hate is almost always based off of a past projection. That's why I don't think you see animals. But animals are at a different level on the survival scale of they're just going to kill things just to eat it because that's how they learn how to get by.
Hate is love perverted.
Vengeance and revenge are always based off prior conflict. I think that like a lot of us will fall to the traps of our mom and dad of what they hate. Mm-hmm. I think that's changing with the new generations and the interweb of knowledge, of being able to back check and facts check the bullshit.
There's an entire fucking portion of the world that operates off that. It's called the Middle East. It's like...
we still all do. We all...
I know we all do, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, this is time immemorial. This is stuff that, like, blood is thicker than water, and hate comes from that. You have a hate on a cellular level that's passed down to you from your parents, and then from their parents, and from their parents, and because, great fucking granddad lost his life to the fucking crusade, like, nowadays, you hate, whatever, so...
Fucking Japs.
Well, that's a funny story, because, both of my grandfathers were on aircraft carriers in the Pacific that got kamikaze. No sooner did we grow up than myself and my brother became kind of Japanophiles. He lived in Japan. My friend is Japanese. And it's just funny what 40 years makes. And America loved Japanese for a while, too. They loved Sony. They loved, the Hondas. They loved Japanese cars. So time sometimes heals wounds. But we digress from love-hate. So there's 1 through 4, right? Number 5, and this is a wild card for you, porno. So many things, and we can just call it erotica, okay? Because erotica is time immemorial. In Pompeii, when the fucking Vesuvius erupted, you find people in these houses in flagrante, and big, sconces or scenes and tiles, like you have Japanese scrolls or Chinese scrolls, the Kama Sutra. Porno is huge. It's one of the things, it's like, that maybe helps humans procreate, and why we have overpopulation and all that other stuff, is the sexification or the objectification of women and etc.
It's still hard to I think to whatever boil down to the essence because like rabbits. Like they mate like crazy.
It's
like
stimulation.
The weird thing, it's like it's. I mean, the erotica is, I guess, a little bit more specific to humanity, but sex and that sexual drive is what underlies all life forms.
Well, okay, but that's coupling. But that's what I'm saying. Now, this is moving it up to a more sophisticated level.
Pornography.
Pornography
prostitution.
is also right. Prostitution is the oldest fucking profession known to man, and I think we've talked about prostitution beforehand, but I just think to my level, like, the internet is off the ground because of porno, you know, and virtual reality will go off the, you know, will get because of porno, because there are plenty of rejected ass dudes out there that don't get laid.
And sex robots.
Right, and stuff like that, because there's always more stimulation than there is ejaculation, and that's porno, you know, like, and that's the thing, and you get, you know, just like rabbits, we can go out there and see the you know, our species and start to vibe off the evolution of man, well, I'm a guy, you're a girl, that, you know, but porno has that's why it's a wild card. It's wild, you know, it's number 5.
Number 5 on Hall's top 10.
Number 6, and this is why I'm just kind of like I am, in the same thing, a paradigm shift, I think, is a restaurant or a bar. When humankind started going out to eat, going out to drink, a local watering hole, the local in England or Ireland, you know, from peat bogs in fucking dirty ass London, you know, to an Irish bar around the world. You know, that you can go in any city in the fucking world and there'll be a fucking Irish bar. You know, something like that. The restaurant as well, you know, like there should be an Italian, you can get Italian food and you can get a piece of pizza anywhere in the world at this time. You know, but it also the way it helps humans congregate as a gathering place. I just think that the restaurant and bar was a huge paradigm shift when people stopped eating at home and started eating out. And now it's kind of coming full circle where people are getting their food delivered and all this other shit, but we'll get to that. And that's just why it's kind of like, hey, it's wild. It's a paradigm shift. I already had my wild card, but paradigm shift, restaurant and bar. Number 6. Number 7, Gutenberg Press. The Gutenberg Press happened in the 6th or 7th century. And what it did is it started standardizing, you know, written language into type and type font, and it started mass-producing type font. It revolutionized reading. It revolutionized what have you. I mean, basically, it brought the printed word global, and it standardized printing. So it wasn't so much handwriting anymore, this and that. You mentioned writing. I think that can piggyback on top of the Gutenberg Press. But it was the original Facebook. It's the original internet. It's the original newspaper. It's the original whatever. And most importantly about the Gutenberg fucking press is you would not have Christianity as a whole without fucking Gutenberg Press. Because thanks to King James Bible or Charlemagne or whatever he did, printing and pre-printing and printing and printing and printing that shit, it wouldn't have been everywhere. It wouldn't have been shoved down everybody's throats. It wouldn't have been able to be readily available. But also increased literacy, obviously. It made that an important aspect. It's one of the reasons why we have Shakespeare and one of the reasons why we had Dickens. And up until 40 years ago, you know, or 50 years ago when the television really took off, written word was still primary form of entertainment outside of the theater and stuff. So this conversation, this whole thing started because I still think the Gutenberg Press beats the living shit out of Facebook. Hands down, in a discussion. In today's day and age, everybody's like Facebook, Facebook, Facebook. Gotta look at Facebook. Gotta look what puns somebody's posting on Facebook. It might have a larger impact globally, numbers-wise, but influentially, I don't think anything can beat the Gutenberg Press. As an invention, that's my 7. Right? Plus, you get to say Gutenberg. And who's the most famous Gutenberg of all? Steve Gutenberg. Mr. Mahoney from Police Academy. So, I digress. Number 8, gunpowder as a discovery. We talked about gunpowder. Gunpowder, you know, these days, when you could stop hacking somebody to death or shooting them with a bow and arrow from 20 feet and you can just bang. It's a game changer. And that pretty much, as a discovery, you know, these days you have a lot of bloodthirsty people. These days you have a bunch of bozos going and shooting people in cold blood. You have a bunch of mentally retarded people who go out there and kill people because they don't actually have to physically kill them. They can just pull a trigger. I mean, gunpowder as one of the greatest unintended consequences ever, because it probably wasn't discovered as such, but wow, what a game changer gunpowder was. From the shot heard around the world, you know, and so on and so forth. So, gunpowder's 8. Number 9, clock, calendar, timekeeping. You mentioned astronomy, and I think I have astronomy just in the same bracket, but I just say, hey, as an invention, a clock. Just imagine, I mean, these are the kind of things I think about, right, Eddie? You think about somebody who puts a fucking gear in a clock and makes it precision. I'm looking over there and I see a digital clock.
Well, and it's extremely man-made. I actually have love-hate issue with clocks and calendars and all that shit, because it does two things. It puts some sort of unity in our species and working at the same time in the same manner, but it also like locks us into a different sort of prison where we lose our spontaneity.
Right. At 8 o'clock you got to be at work. At 12 o'clock you better eat lunch. Stuff like that. At the same time, the fact of the matter is, I'm talking about the invention, not the consequence of it. The fact that somebody could come up with something and tell you precisely 60 seconds later, could tell you precisely that you ran a 4.32 40-meter dash, right? Things of that nature. That's impressive. And the actual mechanics of that blow my mind. How it went from 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000 to now the clock just does it for you.
That people were able to do that even a couple years, 100 years ago. It's so precise with those little tiny gears that they still keep the same time year after year after year. It is mind-blowing, the precision to be able to divide up time and create the
what
gear
do you call this
spikes.
The sand dial, or what is it where you...
like sands through the hourglass.
The hourglass, right. So the hourglass, that is ingenious, and maybe that is beforehand. But so clock and calendar, the fact that I can look at my iPhone and they tell you the sun sets at 5:01 today. Yeah? Wow. Well, the calendar has everything to do with that, along with the clock. So that's number 9. Maybe that falls to hard, that's something that's right for the, like you said, because it really is a man-made construct, but it also helps. At this time of the year, you're supposed to plant the seed. You don't water your lawn at 12 o'clock in the afternoon in California because it's going to evaporate. You water it at 5. You set your timer on that. You set your timer to cook your pot pie for this long. I mean, the clock is ever present in everything we do. And maybe it needs to take a back seat. So it's probably right for a backdrop. But number 10 is probably underrated because that's fermentation, alcohol. I think nothing in this world probably has had as deleterious an effect on humankind as fermentation and alcohol. Alcohol is a disease. Alcohol has a terrible way of making it look like you're having a good time. And it's good for libation, it's good for celebration, but it's also a complete health problem in the Western world. Maybe the Muslims had it right. Don't touch this stuff. I don't know. But as I continue to imbibe, number 10 on my list, alcohol. Number 11, language as a paradigm shift, moving from e to like shit like that. Having the Romance languages versus the Chinese languages, having somebody who's taught language before you have monosyllabic, polytonal, meaning you have one 2-letter word that's pronounced 6 different ways versus polysyllabic, monotonal, where you can have 15 syllables in one word, like Farfignugan, whatever, and it always means the same thing. Language is intense. Language really transcends humanity, and it's one of those things that may move up the seas, because wow, think about that. Everybody else communicates. Dogs bark, birds chirp, this and that. Humans have taken it to the next level. They've really adopted it. And the Gutenberg Press wouldn't mean shit without language. The Magna Carta wouldn't mean shit without language. Many of the things that I've mentioned so far. So maybe language has been undervalued. I mean, certainly you wouldn't hear me if you're not listening, right? So, in the right language. Maybe we need subtitles.
I don't know. I had number 5. I had language number 5. So.
Oh, you did? Okay, good. So he's ahead of the curve. Number 12, astronomy. He mentioned it. Stargazing. That's impossibly cool. For me, for people to be able to say, not only can I look and name these things and create stories and be like, that's Cassiopeia, that's Orion, but I can follow that star and get from here to there. It's not just stargazing, he's navigating by the star. That's incredible. Number 13, camera. Enough said. You're watching this, right? That's it. Number 14, penicillin. He mentioned it. The antidotes and vaccines that humankind have discovered and turned into medicine to help us all live more fulfilling lives. You know, certainly there's one gigantic antidote or vaccine out there that hasn't been created yet for cancer, but everything else seemingly people are working on. Number 15, and maybe this is undervalued, is currency. And he said everybody loves money. And I'm not so certain everybody loves money, but value, wealth, it's easier to quantify. It used to be gold. Maybe it was stones before that, or precious stones. And it will be Bitcoin and cryptocurrency going forward. So that is a huge deal. The fact that money is constantly being reinterpreted. I mean, shit, Bernie Madoff lost and made millions of dollars, billions of dollars, and he had a $50 million wine cellar. And he thought wine was money. I'm like, cheers to that.
That's how it is.
You know?
Like placing value on things that are one thing, a singular thing that creates a value that we compare and contrast.
You can standardize it, right. It's not just a good old greenback. Anything is currency. Sometimes information is currency, etc. Coming at number 16 as a gigantic wild card in humankind is religion. And religion is just fucking silly. I mean, religion's great. It gives people a reverent background. It builds a community. But it also has some of the god-awful, most worst unintended consequences. Like we talked about the Crusades, or the Jihads, or, this monotheistic bullshit's just gotta stop, I guess. You have Eastern philosophy, which is, Buddhism. They call it philosophy, right? Maybe it's a religion at some level. But human worship, we'll just call it that. Humans not being able to interpret where they came from, why am I here, existential angst. So they just give it to God. They're like, hey, all praise to God.
I think there's two sides of the coin on that one, like your love-hate coin that you talked about earlier. For every single radical that wants to eradicate anyone that doesn't believe that they want to believe that, there's another person that will love everyone regardless what their background and belief is. You just don't hear about those people really because they're not it's not an intense, for whatever reason, for this moment in history, we like to read stories that have an intense dramatic shock value, and for whatever reason the people killing is a bigger story. That's what we've decided. Either we've decided as a species or a small little Illuminati, per se, decide for the species but even if they're deciding it, we're eating it the fuck up. So
people want to be part of the club too.
We love teams. We love to say that I'm on the Muslim team, or I'm on the Christianity team.
Even the Muslims have two teams, and the Christians have
many teams.
The thing is if the Muslims just act like Muslims, and the Christians just act like Christians, we wouldn't have that problem. Well, no chance that the people who call themselves Christians these days, for the most part, when they start drawing lines and they start, taking a bad line against homelessness or the disenfranchised or whatever, they're not being Christian, and that's what's so perverted.
Well, I think the other thing that's hard to do is
we all do behave like
category. I think a lot of us have that tendency of we categorize and put ourselves in these little boxes, but whenever you're outside of that box, you forget. So there is a high number of people that will go to church on Sunday, and that will range from maybe the Catholics that's kind of my background, going there for those 3 hours, and then you kind of forget about the rest of the week, to maybe the Baptists who live it more on a day-to-day basis. But almost no matter what the range you're in, that is, if you go to a bar and get drunk, you totally forget about all of the other stuff, or your neighbor who is whatever,
pissing you off. Right?
Yeah. So I think it's hard to even if you're the best person in the world, it's going to be hard to
Religion set a standard for how you should live your life. And the problem is it's the ultimate do as I say, not as I do. Now, if you do as everyone else does and you start living with the golden rule and keeping it like treat others like you want to be treated yourself, and everybody kind of has a certain amount of humility and respect, then that's where the base level of religion really should be. And ultimately, religion of all these religions are just great stories. And what do you think? Did man create God, or does God create man? And that's the thing behind religion. Number 16. Number 17, you mentioned it, microchip. We have microchip, it's called a brain. Now there's a cyber microchip called, it's in everything. It's called a microchip, and there's microchips. We have the transistor, we have other things like that, but I think the microchip in the computers is the biggest invention that we have going. Number 18, and this is a huge paradigm shift in my mind, mass production / factory farms. You talked about agriculture, and I think about mass producing things, and maybe nothing is more mass produced these days than food itself. It did happen in the Industrial Revolution. They started mass producing, and craftsmanship and all that other stuff happened, and everything is just cookie cutter and box cut. But probably the most important mass production these days is factory farming, GMO, agriculture. And you mentioned agriculture, so I butted it in there as a paradigm shift. Nowadays, we're moving from real food to fake food. There's a reason why you can go to fucking Burger King and get $5 worth of food that looks like a meal for $5. How do you do that? Because it's not food. That's why. Number 19. One of the biggest discoveries humans ever made, was the Americas.
You're fucking patriots.
The New World. I'm not talking about America, okay?
God,
mind you, I'm talking about America. Yeah, exactly. All that bullshit, make America great again. I'm just saying Amerigo Vespucci, Columbus, all this other shit, the New World. They're searching for India. They think the Earth is flat. They're sailing right towards, and then bang, the New World. One of the biggest tectonic paradigm shifts and discoveries. But let's just listen to discovery because they discovered the New World. Yeah. Apparently,
there's already
Native Americans were already here. Whatever you want to. There's so many different ways to call it. Yes, the natives were already here. It's not that much of a discovery. But for Europe and Western Europe, that was huge as a discovery. Number 20, you talked about it. Hiroshima, Nagasaki, the atomic bomb. That was a game changer, and it's looming large still. Our parents grew up with drills, thinking, hey, duck and cover, who gives a shit? This is an atomic bomb. Nowadays, we're thinking about it again. Finger on the button. One hothead versus another. It's all bullshit. But the proof is in the pudding. Bomb. Atomic bomb. That's number 20. So last 5. Number 21, and I think this is hugely underrated, and it will only become bigger and more important in the future, is artificial intelligence. As an invention, humankind can do a lot worse than artificial intelligence as far as the most important thing they're about to do. Making computers, smart computers, computers that know everything. They obviously go with these doomsday scenarios, and I don't know what you think about the Terminator.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Someone's going to do it. I mean,
our thermostat knows when we're here. Our thermostat knows when we're not here.
And bring it on. Let's see what happens.
So it's already unstoppable.
It's already happening. Yeah, there's no stopping.
Number 22 would be, speaking of AI, The Theory of Evolution by Charles Darwin. The idea that species evolve and not what,
I'm not from a fucking fish.
Right. But we might be from an egg. Who knows?
No, I'm from the mud god.
Right. Exactly. And then dinosaurs, were birds, and birds before that. It's just amazing to think that humans had to be on Earth for long enough and develop such an intellect in order to even conceive that this and this are not too far apart. Maybe it was just a growth pattern.
How many transformations had to happen to get to a primate?
Can't
it
goes
see it
from one
small
lifetime.
little bugs to plants that are kind of like living animal organisms, to fish, to things that walk on the land. It's absolutely. I would love people have done it already, right? But I'd love to see the time lapse history of this planet from about 4 billion years ago to right now that would last 24 hours.
Well, the continents involved too. And that would let's just take some mushrooms and watch that. But that movie would show the actual plates and the continents evolving too, which just goes to show that, it's delta, it's change. And evolution, Darwin just, he probably was spitballing, and then he found a couple examples of it, and he ran with it. So I would put evolution at number 22. Number 23, domestication of animals. From livestock, chickens, poultry, bovine, whatever, to horses, to ride, to man's best friend, Fido. Just talk to Petco Park down in fucking San Diego. Number 24, and here's a wild card for you that probably doesn't belong on this list, but I think it's kind of funny, is birth control. And look at me, I had erotica and porno, and now I got birth control, so I got it on the brain. But to tell you the truth, I think that that's a huge kind of hiccup. It also butts up against religion and this and that. But it's just kind of a funny wild card to throw in there,
Yeah, I love it. I love it being in the it's in the bracket.
Maybe 24 is too high, but it's kind of interesting.
It might get an upset. It might get to the round of 32.
Women will fight for birth control. Men always determine what the fuck is up with birth control and the powers that be. And it seems like a classist system of control. If you let people determine whether or not they're going to have a baby, then it helps them build their lives or not. If you don't, then they're constantly going to have too many babies and be exactly like what they want. And it's not even a religious discussion anymore to me. It's a classist power discussion. And number 25, to round out this hour-long debate that we've been talking about, can you guess what it is? It's wild card.
Duct tape.
Duct tape would be great. Duct tape's going to line up. Holy fuck, how did duct tape not line up on there? Memes. The great equalizer in today's society is found on Instagram, and it is called memes. Memes are the best thing of the 20th century, hands down.
Have you played What the Meme?
I have not played What the Meme, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like Cards Against Humanity.
Memes are, take this image, stock image, whatever, familiar image, and put the best quote you can have or the best narrative next to it and elicit shudders, laughs, whatever. It's just, they are viral, they are, you can watch them over and over again, repetitive, and they're here to stay because they're the everyman's commentary on this world. I get my news from memes. I don't need to look at the New York Times. I just wait for somebody to post something pithy about it. And like I said, it's anybody's game with memes, and that's why I believe they belong on this list, because memes belong to the masses, and it helps people to conceptualize their own existence and to give other people a frame of reference that we're all the same. We're all in the same game.
Yeah.
So
memes is going to have a hard time in this tournament because it has no bearing on my life.
Has no
I don't look.
Right, so here we get to the
how is it going to play out?
The dichotomy. Here we go. Right. The point counterpoint. But that is 25, a hard 25, a soft 25, 25 and alive.
So now you know where we're coming from, what's important to each of us, what a little bit of the foreshadowing that's about to come your way in a couple more episodes.
When we fill out the 60-14 bracket with those and more stuff that you've been paying attention, you know what's coming. And if you haven't, well, just sit along for the ride. We appreciate you listening to all this hot air. It's been a real pleasure, and we continue pushing forward because we need you to know that we care about mankind now.
Where we've come from, where we're going. So we'll see you next time on the Hajas and Hallro High Low No Show.